And we are back with some more Persona 3 Fairly English Story. But yeah, just want to thank you guys for the positive reception of the first video. I didn't know if it would get any views or if anybody was interested in it or if I did a remotely good job narrating. Like I don't do this. I don't read stories out loud to people. It's not something that I do. So yeah, I was really happy with that, so figured it couldn't hurt to continue the series. Last time on Persona 3 but British, we experienced the first few days of Persona 3 through the eyes of our Chav protagonist. He was being a real horn dog for Yukari Takeba. He fought multiple guys unarmed single-handedly and then gave it a really long and edgy lecture about fighting to some strangers. He showed Junpei that the only Japanese bands he knows are bands that did popular anime openings, which is extremely real. And now we are in the Velvet Room. So chapter 4 of Persona 3 Fairly English Story. We got our tea in honor of SamJaz, because for the Brits, you know, and to keep my voice nice and smooth. I found myself in a large blue room with a chain fence for a back wall. Judging from the lights moving downwards and the spinning dial, I decided I was in some kind of lift. For some reason, I was now sitting in a chair at a table, and on the other side is a man sitting on the pimpingest seat I have ever seen. There was a young blonde in a blue uniform standing to his left, but the man didn't exactly seem human. His nose was long, his grin wide, and his eyes looked like he'd been sniffing adrenaline. His white, balding hair revealed pointed ears, but the thing that struck me the most was his voice. It was creepy, yet inviting, and dripping in awesome. My name is Igor. I am delighted to make your acquaintance. He gestured to the girl. This is Elizabeth. She's a resident here, like myself. The girl nodded. Pleased to meet you. Igor looked straight at me, smiling. This place exists between dream and reality, mind and matter. It's been years since we've had a guest. Now, Igor waved his hand, and the red book from the other night appeared on the table, opening itself. I checked the contract again. I, Minato Arizoto, give my word that I will take full responsibility for the consequences of my decisions. Igor continued to speak. Only those who have signed the contract can enter this place. Henceforth, you shall be welcome here in the Velvet Room. I nodded, wondering where that music was coming from. Wherever it was from, it was damned appropriate. You are destined to hone your unique ability, and you will require my assistance to do so. I only ask one thing in return. I look at Igor. Present tense. I look at Igor, all attention on him. That you abide by the contract and assume responsibility for the choices you make. Now, this was something I'd been brought up to do, and accepting consequences for my actions was second nature to me. Since he was actually going as far as to bind me to a contract, it suggested that I was going to have to accept some big responsibility for some big choices in the near future. Either that, or this Igor dealt with some shady characters. Either way, I nodded. I intended on doing that anyway. My turn. I noticed we are speaking in English. Sam, I could have helped you with this grammar, my guy. I noticed we are speaking in English, so I felt more comfortable speaking. Looking intently at Igor, I asked him, You said that this place is between dream and reality, but aren't I asleep? That makes this a dream, doesn't it? Igor laughed, not unkindly. Precisely, he replied, his smile spreading. You are fast asleep in the real world as we speak. This visit of yours is merely a dream. However, you will come here of your own accord, sooner or later. I leaned back in my chair. How do I do that? Ah, I see you like to be in control, my young guest. Igor smiled and pulled something out of his pocket. Hold on to this, and his hand began to glow. Then my hand glowed, and a dark blue key appeared in my hand. I looked up to speak, but Igor merely waved. till we meet again. My eyes opened wide, and I was back in bed. It was morning already, so I got up, rubbing my eyes. Then I noticed I was still holding the key from my dream. Yep, things can only get awesome from here. This is very 2009, his very liberal usage of the word awesome. Realizing that once again I'd woken up before my alarm, I decided to do some sit-ups before breakfast, opting for cereal today. Akihiko-senpai, Mitsuru-senpai, and Yukari-san all left before I did, so once again, I was left alone to make my lunches. I eventually left the dorm, and I met up with Junpei on the train. "Sup, Nara-kun?" Junpei was ecstatic about something. "Man, today is a perfect day. The sky is blue, the sun is shining, and the birds are singing, and we're young. What more can we ask for?" "Sleep." "Dude, I'm not sick. Forget the old Junpei. This is the real me. You should cheer up too, man. After all, you've got me as a friend." "Not what I meant. There'd be less war if people slept more, mate." "Oh yeah?" We discussed my theory on sleep deprivation and aggression on the way to school. Junpei-kun had an equally inane theory about the relationship between this apathy syndrome and homework. Both theories were equally ridiculous, but I won the straight-face contest. I slept through Mr. Ikota's lesson today. I wasn't actually that tired, but the book he had us reading was utter crap. He said it was the origin of Japanese literature, but it made less sense than Tolkien. Actually, Lord of the Rings was good, but made no sense first time round. I made a note to slip a Japanese copy of Towers into class next Thursday. It'd probably be easier and safer to slip in something else like Pride and Prejudice or Mice and Men, but I like to follow through on my ideas. Also, Gimli is badass. I made note to quote him next time someone asks for my name. Hoping I might get a chance to check out that Velvet Room again, I went to bed fairly early. I couldn't sleep, so I tried to wear myself out with some push-ups and sit-ups, but I still couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, so I did this, but I still couldn't sleep. Getting bored, I pulled a short sword from under my bed and practiced my swings. You may be wondering, hey, why the hell does he have a sword? And I won't blame you. I actually did my work experience with the blacksmiths a few years ago, and he helped me make it. It wasn't that good, light, strong, or sharp, but it was good for the muscle training. I've seen someone use a lead pipe in a fight once, so I made a point in learning how to use various weapons in case I needed to adapt an impromptu weapon. Though I couldn't learn how to use firearms due to health and safety laws, boring, and knives, well, they were too easy to carry around. I didn't want to just depend on them in fights. Yeah, I carry a Leatherman multi-tool around, but I don't want blood on my hands, so I'm strict on my self-imposed no knives rule. It's about the only rule I have in fights. Oh yeah, it's like a little one of these fellas. Little Swiss Army knives type shit. That's cool. Damn. I want one. I ended up getting to sleep around 10, but a loud noise woke me up during coffin time. I pulled my trousers on and buttoned up my shirt and was just about to put my school jacket on, leaving my tie, if you call it that, in my pocket, and head the door, when someone tried to smash it down. "Wake up!" Yukari was clearly terrified about something. "Sorry, I'm coming in." With that, she opened the door. "Good thing I got dressed already, huh?" She looked in such a panic that I didn't even consider how she'd opened my locked door. "I don't have time to explain," she said in a rush, walking towards me, "but we have to get out of here now." "Fair enough," I said, but I'm not sure she heard me as the building shook again. There was an increase in the urgency of her voice this time. "Hurry, downstairs, we'll leave through the back door." She turned to leave, but almost as an afterthought. "Wait." She turned back to me and offered me a short sword. "Take this. While not the best quality weapon, it has a decent blade. I knew that Yukari was scared of it. Clearly, she wasn't comfortable with the weapon. However, I could also tell that she was even more terrified of the situation. "Keep it," I said, reaching for my blunt, heavy, useless iron bar shaped like a sword. "I'll use this." Anyone who knew their swords could tell that I was making sure that she had the better weapon, and she seemed to recognize this. Thanks." However, I only took the blunt weapon, so she couldn't guilt me into taking her sword. I had no intention of fighting with it, if it came to that. The building shook again, and we remembered what we were doing. Quick! Downstairs! Yukari led the way down the hallway. We ran down the stairs and reached the back door, but it appeared I was in better shape than I thought. Alright, we should be safe now. Yukari stopped and acted as if she was talking to someone. Yes, I hear you. Earpiece and walkie-talkie, most likely. I tried to figure out what the person on the other end was telling her, but judging from the expression on her, "What?" it couldn't have been good. It probably had something to do with the fact that someone was trying to knock the door down. Yukari desperately tried to regain control of the situation. Let's pull back. We both ran up the stairs to the second floor, and the building continued to shake. Yukari was clearly in a panic. What are we gonna do? They're downstairs. We gotta go further up. As we continued up the stairs, I could see that this wasn't the brightest of all escapes. For one thing, we were going to end up cornered at the top floor unless there was a helipad on the roof. It's getting closer! Hurry! We eventually reached the top floor, which consisted of a steel door. Oh yeah, Yukari said, panting for breath. We should be safe through there. We went through the iron door to the open roof, and Yukari locked it behind us. She leaned back against it and sighed in relief. Alright, we should be safe now. As if to spite her, the building shook again, and I realized just how safe we were not. A blue mask poked over the edge of the building, held by a black hand. It looked around, and then ascended as a monster made out of black arms crawled onto the roof. After the initial shock, I began to come up with a plan of attack. The bloody asshole pulled out half a dozen swords, each bigger than me. Oh, bloody hell no. It suddenly noticed us, and I added, terrific. As it approached, Yukari began to explain. Those monsters? We call them shadows. She pulled out her gun, I hadn't even noticed it this time, and put it to her head. Hey, wait! I tried to stop her. She pulled the trigger, and several pillars of energy shot up. The monster, the shadow, didn't seem to care though. It just shot out and knocked her aside with a bare hand. Yukari! I stepped out to help her as the shadow turned to face me. Oh, bugger. Obviously, I was terrified. I stepped back away from this thing. I didn't want to show fear. I knew I needed to do something or we were both going to die. But I was doing all I could just to stop myself wearing brown trousers. Then I noticed Yukari's gun on the floor by my feet. It looked like a small caliber handgun, but looking at it, there was no magazine slot. It couldn't be loaded. I had a vision of that creepy kid from the other night. Go on, he said, his hand pointing its finger at the side of his head. I didn't need to be told twice. Bending down, I picked up the gun, holding it in my hands. The shining metal was cold to the touch, despite the wooden stock. I remembered Yukari putting the gun to her head. I flinched, and my heart raced faster as I remembered her pulling the trigger. I calmed myself down, and with the composure of a chess player moving a queen into a checkmate, I slowly lifted the gun to my temple. My blood was coursing through my body. My breathing was so fast that I was scared I might hyperventilate. As a cold drop of sweat slid down my face, I resigned myself to my fate. I, Minato Arizoto, give my word that I will take full responsibility for the consequences of my decisions. As the words formed in my head, I smiled. Igor was an asshole. Nah. Without flinching, I pulled the trigger. I felt an ice-cold bullet fly through my skull, but instead of blood, blue glass flew from the other side. I didn't know why my right hand was holding the gun into the air, not why there was a whirlwind of blue glass flying around me, or even why I was enjoying this so much, but I grinned as I spoke the most badass words of my entire life, even though I wasn't the one speaking it. Thou art I, and I am thou. From the sea of thy soul I cometh. I am Orpheus, master of strings. The being behind me screamed, no, roared in rage as I grinned evilly. This was my crowning moment of awesome. Even more awesome, that time I clutched my head and fell to my knees. My skull hurt, damn it. Orpheus screamed in pain, and I span around to see him spazzing out as a pair of white arms worked their way out of its mouth. Suddenly, the arms stretched apart as Orpheus was ripped to pieces from the inside. Floating there instead was a larger being, dressed in black with a dinosaur helmet. I couldn't see its face, but I could see the chain of coffins floating around its neck. It roared with rage, hate, and hunger as it drew a sword and flew into the air and lunged for the shadow. I rolled over to see the shadow get into some screwed up stance, but this bad boy just came down like a hurricane, slicing the shadow's mask in two. I got up as Thanatos, don't ask me why I knew its name, but I did, ripped the shadow's body limb from limb. I could hear Yukari gasp as a writhing arm landed in front of her, but I paid her no notice as I stared at Thanatos, transfixed. I remembered what Igor had said about honing my power, but I had no idea that... I stood there, blinking, and I laughed like a maniac as Thanatos roared. Persona, Shadow, Thanatos. Hell, even Igor was a clever pun. As Thanatos turned back into Orpheus, everything began to fall into place, thanks to my basic GCSE psychology. As Orpheus vanished, I turned to check on Yukari, smiling. Freud would have loved this. You alright? My heart was still racing. Heck, Yukari-san must think I'm a psycho now. Yeah, I think so. She still looked worried. Is it over? As I heard the slithering behind me, I answered, nope. Realizing I'd already dropped Yukari's placebo, I switched the gun from my right hand to my left and put my foot underneath the real blade, kicking it into the air. Yukari's placebo? What is Yukari's placebo? The gun? Or the sword? Catching the handle, I span round to meet my enemies. They looked like smaller versions of the shadow Thanatos just killed. They didn't have weapons, but there were a lot more of them. Charging in, I pieced together what I knew and sliced the first one in the mask. The sword got stuck halfway. Quickly, I kicked it in the face, pushing it down but losing my sword in the process. I swung around and punched the second shadow in the face. Grabbing the back of its head, I rammed my knee into its face, cracking the mask. I reversed the gun's grip into a tonfa, but a third shadow jumped me, pushing me against the wall. Minato-kun! I can't do it! I can't do her voice loudly, man. Minato-kun! I span around in its grip, headbutting the shadow in the mask. As it reeled back, I kneed it where the jaw should have been, then smashed my elbow right into the mask. Seeing a gorgeous crack right between the eyes, I smashed the gun right into it, grinning as the crack grew. Pulling my Leatherman out of my pocket, I flicked out the knife and rammed it between the cracks, prizing it apart. With the mask broken, the shadow melted, and I ran a quick morality test as I put my knife back. Yep, doesn't count. I blinked the blood out of my eyes as the first two mooks charged. Smiling, I spanned the gun to my head, bracing myself as I glared at the closest shadow. Ugh! I cried, pulling out the trigger, as Orpheus appeared above me. Oh my god, I can't do a hearty anime yell right now. Oh! I gotta admit, the way it crushed that shadow with its instrument was pretty damn awesome. But I was already rushing towards the other shadow, the one with the sword in its face. Grabbing the sword, delivered a roundhouse kick with my left leg, sending the shadow's head through my weapon. Epic! I turned around, seeing that all the shadows were dead and that Orpheus had disappeared, and saw Yukari standing there, staring at me in sheer shock. I smiled at her as the world turned black and face decided to make What? I smiled at her as the world turned black and face decided to make friends with the ground. Sorry, I didn't like the words black and face that close together. While I was happy that I hadn't fallen on my sword, I was worried about what state my skull was gonna be in when I woke up. My eyes opened and I was in a world of blue. I almost panicked but relaxed when I heard a familiar voice. It's nice to see you again. I turned to face the sound. I can't fucking talk tonight, brother. I turned to face the sound and saw Igor sitting there, grinning as usual. You became unconscious after awakening to your power. It's nothing to worry about though, so just Relax. I shifted into a more comfortable position in my chair as Igor continued. By the way, I see that it was Orpheus that heeded your calling. That power is called persona. It is a manifestation of your psyche. I clutched my head. I said everything fell into place, but it was really a load of guesswork. Persona? Psyche? I asked him, playing the confused child perfectly. I don't understand. Igor laughed. It may take some time to fully comprehend, but there's no need to act for us. I sat stock still as Igor continued. Unlike the people in the real world, our purpose is to help you. He smiled at rumbling my little game. A persona is a facet of your personality that surfaces as you react to external stimuli. You can think of it as a mask that protects you as you brave many hardships. Carl Jung, right? Igor seemed to smile wider, if that was even possible. That is correct. However, that being said, your power is still weak. You mean Thanatos isn't my power yet? I thought so, seeing as I couldn't summon him the second time. Igor just laughed again. It seemed impossible to surprise him. Then again, if he was the manifestation of my ego. I see you already have a goal set up. When you use your persona ability, you must channel your inner strength. Thanatos probably came about from act of killing yourself, so to speak. Huh? Your ability, however, evolves as you develop your social links, your emotional ties with others. The stronger your social links, the more powerful your persona ability. Please remember that. Now then. Igor paused, smiling. Time marches on in your world. I really shouldn't keep you here any longer than I already have. Wait, there's more I need to ask you. I didn't care about losing my cool here. After all the work I did to come back, I was not going to go out that easy without answers. Igor chuckled again. The next time we meet, you will come here of your own accord, and will leave through the same. Igor flashed me a smile as the velvet room was engulfed in a bright light. Until then, farewell. Hello gamers, Editor Doinko here. I actually read like 3 more chapters on this day, but I'm running out of editing time for the day and I just want to upload something today. You'll see the the next 3 chapters sometime this week, maybe on Sunday or something. Oh my god, it takes a while, bro. It takes a while, man. Anyway, this is really action-packed. Couple of chapters, you know, we got I'm also pulling clips from Persona 3 the movie. Like, there's 4 movies. I was able to find 2 of them, and I've never watched these movies before, so it's nice to see. It's cool to see like the different art styles that it uses, and you know, whatever. And the clips are cool. So, and I'm not sitting on a trove of Persona 3 footage or anything, because I never finished Reload. So yeah, I don't know, man. I'm clearly so tired. Oh my god. Thanks for watching. Have yourself a nice day, mate.